thank you. It's good to be here. It's good to see so many people who have been in Albania. Thank you for praying for us. We do appreciate your prayers. Pray for our boys, Aaron, Joel, and Thomas. Aaron's just back in Albania after a year and a half in London. He is baptized. He wasn't going to any church in London, so we're happy he's back and coming along to our church. Joel and Thomas are very involved in the youth work in our church, but neither of them are baptized. Aaron's finished for business study. Joel finishes now for physiotherapy, and Thomas is in his second year of psychology. So if you could pray for them, we'd love to see them more committed to the Lord than they are at the moment. Now, if you do come to Albania, you could go and visit this road. It's an ancient road called the Via Ignatia. And if you go there and look at it, it's the old road that Paul, probably more than likely, Paul used this road traveling through what was previously what is now Turkey, and then going, and it finishes in the old ancient city of Durakum, which is Durrës in Albania. So we say 99.9% sure that the Apostle Paul traveled this road and ended up in Albania. There's evidence of Christians martyred in Durrës in the 1st century. And that's what Paul actually says. He says, up until Illyricum, have fully preached the gospel. And ancient Illyria is the orange, and part of that at the bottom is where Albania is now. So we had a good start to the gospel coming into Albania. It doesn't continue like that, unfortunately. Here is a map of today of Albania. We are surrounded by Greece, North Macedonia, Kosovo, and Montenegro. But the red is the Catholic area, the purple is the Albanian Orthodox, and the green is Sunni Muslim, and the light green is Bektashi or Sufi Islam. There are 5 major religions accepted in Albania by the state: Catholic, Orthodox, Sunni, the Sufi Islam, and the evangelicals. Now that's good. However, in reality, that's not the case. So when we come to Easter or Christmas, the Prime Minister will say, "I wish a happy Easter to all our Catholic and Orthodox believers." Nothing about the evangelicals. Same for Christmas time. There was a terrorist murder in France. So to show solidarity with the French, the Prime Minister went to France and walked along this street to pay honour to them, because there's a big procession. And he took with him a leader from the Albanian Orthodox, the Catholic, the Sunni, and the Sufi Islam. He didn't take anyone from the evangelicals. And this was to show that in Albania, there is acceptance of all religion. He didn't take anyone from the evangelicals. So these, I'm just going to explain, go through some difficulties we face in Albania. 400 years of Ottoman rule. The Turks came into Albania in 1500s, and we had 400 years of Turkish rule. In the end, they were teaching Turkish. You weren't allowed to study Albanian at all. Obviously, people were converted from a Catholic or Orthodox to be a Muslim. But in the 1800s, there was an effort made to get the gospel into Albania. There was a Scotsman, a man called Alexander Thompson, was involved in this. And he was very involved in this. This is one of the converts, a man called Gerasim Chiriazi. And something that he did that was very important was he created an Albanian Evangelical Alliance. That's over 150 years ago. That's important. It'll come up again. The evangelicals at that time were the first to open, under Ottoman rule, an Albanian-speaking school. They were involved in Albania getting independence. It's not very well known in history, but that is the truth. But then, following all the good work of the gospel coming in and some advances made in the gospel after the Second World War, funded by the UK government, the communists took over. Now, the UK government realised their mistake, and they twice sent in crack teams to take out Enver Hoxha as the leader, but all their information went through a man called Kim Philby. And if you know who Kim Philby was, he sent a message to the Russians, and when they arrived in Albania, they were waiting for them, and they were arrested and killed both times. But anyway, in 1967, he declared Albania to be an atheistic state. and all religion was banned, and basically there were no Christians. There was one man who became a Christian listening to Trans World Radio, getting beamed in. He had to block Trans World Radio. That was his job. But he listened to the message and became a Christian listening to the message. This is just an idea of what happened. Either the religious buildings were knocked down. This is a big Catholic church in our town. It was turned into a sports hall. But because the Evangelical Alliance was created 170 years ago, in 1990, at the fall of communism, it was restarted. So we were able to say to the government, we're not a sect that's just come into the country. We're not some strange religion. We're the same people who were here 150, 170 years ago that was involved in getting Albanian independence. And that's one of the reasons why we were accepted as a major religion. These are just some of the stats. It's very difficult to get proper stats in Albania, but 56 Muslim, 11 Orthodox, 11 Catholic, 6 Bektashi, it's a Sufi Islam, 0.4 Evangelical. You won't be able to read this, but I'll tell you what it says. How many of you consider yourselves somewhat religious or religious? In Albania, it's over 60%. So it's 2/3 that consider themselves. I wouldn't say that they are. What they mean by that is it's very important for me to say that I'm a Muslim, for example, or I'm a Catholic, or I'm Orthodox. That is something that's important to me. It doesn't mean anything much more than that for a lot of them. It's different in Kosovo. If you're interested in Kosovo, 91% Muslim, and it's almost all of them are saying that they are at least somewhat religious, and that would be the case. Now, what's the smallest state in the world, certainly in Europe, is Vatican City. That may change soon, because our Prime Minister wants to create a Sufi state, a Bektashi state within our capital city. And I say, well, why is he doing that? They're only, at the very most, 6%. They're probably 4% of the population. Why would he do that? Well, there may be interest for him in different ways, but I think if you create a Sufi state with 4% of the population, then later he can say, well, if we are almost 60% Muslim, we can just declare ourselves an Islamic state. Our Prime Minister is very influenced by Turkey. He wants Albania to go the same way as Turkey. Oh, we are the country, Islam in Albania, as I think Islam everywhere, is very, very connected with superstition. It's all superstition. And this is a cuddly toy that's outside a new building, because if someone passes the new building and sees someone putting up a big building with lots of money, then they'll cast the evil eye on the building and they will curse the building. So the cuddly toy is there, so the evil eye, the curse will fall on the cuddly toy and not on the people who own the building. It's all part of the way the Albanians think. Recently, we've been having a lot of tourism, a lot more people coming to Albania. This helps the economy. It's already up 15% this year. Lots more Ryanair and EasyJet flights coming in. But what it means is all the Albanians now say, well, if I've got an apartment, I'll rent it out Airbnb. So that means that young people who get married, and there's a couple in their church, Eddie and Cindy, I don't know what happened to my text, but anyway, it shrunk. Eddie and Cindy, they got married last year in a church. They're our only young couple that have just been married. And Eddie's very, very capable with the youth work, and we want him to do the youth work. But he said, I don't have any job. I'll probably get a job, and I'll work Saturday, so I don't want to take the job on if I'm working Saturday. But we're taking him through a marriage course, and he didn't have a job. He's wondering, and he can't find a place to live, because either the Airbnb or the places, the rent's too high. Since we've been here, we heard that he has got a job. He had to go down to a final interview in the capital city. There were 2 people for the interview, and he was sitting in the waiting room waiting for the answer, who won the interview. And he said, I hope I'm chosen. I hope I'm chosen. And then he said, I thought, well, you know what? God has chosen me for salvation, and it's a choice that's far greater than getting work. So I'm just glad that I've been chosen by God for salvation. So we thought that was a good testimony. But we're pleased that he actually got the job, and hopefully now he'll find some place to live. Albania is a safe place to come. Didn't always be like that. 1997, we had riots, and because of the fall of a pyramid scheme, the people in the country went and raided the army barracks, and everyone had automatics. There was no police in the street, and the country closed its borders. And for the next few years, it was a very dangerous place to be. If it was a big football match and any team scored, everyone ran with automatics and shot them up in the air, and they lit up the sky. Now, around that time, shortly after that, I was doing a youth group, and the subject was on fear, and I said, have you ever been scared? And some of them said, yes. I said, well, tell me when you were scared. And one of the guys said, oh, the night you took me home in the van. And I said, oh, what was that? And he said, well, you took me home in the white van. Well, I always took him home in the green van. Green van was the one I drove. These were two vans that we had. And he said, you took me home in a white van, and when I got out and I turned the corner, there were all these guys with balaclavas and automatics. And they said, who are you? And I said, I live here. And they said, what were you doing in the police van? He said, that's not the police van, that was a church van. I was at a church meeting. And they said, well, we have come out to steal the next car that comes down the road. And we jumped out, saw it was a police van, and jumped back in again. So it wasn't the police van. God was looking after me, which I'm thankful for, and I'm sure that he looks after us in different ways and we never know. But I'm sure it was an answer to people praying for us. Where am I? Stopped working. We've got blocked. If someone at the back can move that, it'd be, I'd appreciate it. Okay, yeah. We've got the most coffee shops per capita. If you come to Albania, it's just coffee shop, coffee shop, coffee shop, coffee shop, coffee shop. Anything new that's opened up is a coffee shop. But that's an advantage for the gospel, because the Albanians have all got an opinion. So if you sit and have a coffee for an Albanian, you can be for a couple of hours with a little espresso coffee, and they'll sit with their little espresso for 2 hours, and they'll talk to you about anything. So it's a good opportunity for the gospel. Second in Europe's loneliest country, next to Montenegro. Oh, the stats have shrunk. I did this on my MacBook, and then I turned it to PowerPoint. But I'll tell you what the stats are. This is the amount of evangelicals throughout the Balkans. Greece is 0.3%. North Macedonia, 0.2%. Kosovo, 0.1%. Montenegro, it's not even 0.1%. It's probably 0.01%. Montenegro. Bosnia, 0.1%. Croatia and Serbia are better, 0.4 and 0.6, and we are 0.4. So the Balkans is a very needy area for the gospel. And I look at that map and I say, well, why is that the case? And maybe it's my theology, you might not agree, but ancient Greece and the gods in ancient Greece, I think there's some demonic influence throughout that that's never really recovered. And it's a difficult area for the gospel right throughout the Balkans. Whoever I meet in a conference in the Balkans, same problem in every single country. Similar lifestyle throughout the Balkans. Depopulation hotspots. Everybody's leaving the Balkans to go live to get a better life elsewhere. And this is one of the big problems in Albania. We recently had a census. They didn't tell us the outcome, and I heard that we didn't get the outcome. It's out now. But because they didn't want to announce how low the population in Albania is, they said it's down to 2.8 million. It was 3.5 when I went 30 years ago to Albania. Nobody believes it's 2.8. They believe it's nearer 2 million, 2.2 at the very most. But most would say it's about 2 million. So what's the problem? On the 11th of May this year, we've got general election. If there's only 2 million in the country and only 1 million turn up to vote, and you declare that there's actually 3 million in the country, then it's only 30% of the population have come to vote. So what have they done? They've said all the Albanians abroad can vote, so they can manipulate the voting, because in some areas, somebody's won the area with more votes than there are people who voted. So it's all for manipulation, and they don't want to announce the real population of Albania just because there's so many people leaving. Of course, that affects the church. There's a guy called Christy. He's a psychiatrist, Christian psychiatrist. Alida myself discipled him through his late teenage years, met with him quite frequently, and he's much sought after from the Christian church in Albania, because he's the only Christian psychiatrist. And as you know, mental health is a big problem today. He says, I can't stay in Albania. He says, the psychiatric ward where I am is an old people's home. They send people there, and I say, there's no mental health issue here, take them back home. He said, who's going to look after them back home? Just keep them in here. And he says, I'm not staying to be the head of an old people's home. I'm going abroad, so he's going to Germany to live. This is just typical. A very gifted young man who could be a real blessing to the church and to church leadership, not just within the church doing his job as a psychiatrist, but we lose these people. Now, the old hymn said, Jesus bids us shine with a pure, clear light. You in your small corner and I in mine. Unfortunately, that's much the case of the Albanian Evangelical Church. No working together at all. It really frustrates me. Why? I'm talking about all the denominations. I'm not talking about the Brethren Church here. Everyone, there's no working together. No idea of working together. I'll give you an example. I recently found that the new Alpha was translated. It's all free online on YouTube. I never knew that. Nobody told me that. Come on, somebody should have been saying, this has been translated. Whoever wants to use it can use it. You know, everyone just does their own thing, gone the wrong way. So, for example, we've got our Evangelical Alliance. When we joined the Evangelical Alliance, we're part of the Evangelical Alliance, literally this happened. They said, thank you for all the new people who've joined. We've now got to vote for a new president of the Evangelical Alliance. Vaughan, will you do it? Oh, I'm busy in my church this year. And he said, how about Gregor? Gregor, will you do it? I've done it before. Somebody else could do it, surely. And said, Aliyah, would you do it? And he says, oh, somebody's better than me, but if you want, I'll do it. Okay, you do it, Aliyah. Now there's a fight because we've been recognized by the government. There's money coming in to the Evangelical Church, and people send it through the Evangelical Alliance. And I've heard of millions of euros coming in for the Evangelical Church. I don't see it. I don't see it on the ground. I don't know where this money's going. And there's a big fight. Recently, someone within a Christian within the alliance took the alliance to court because of the voting system. It said you said I gave out too many papers to my own church so they could vote more for the new president. And we couldn't do anything for 2 years until this was sorted out. We're not going to go anywhere as a church if that's the situation. Everyone translates their song, the hymns in their own way. So a hymn's translated 12 different ways by 12 different churches. So you go to a big conference like this, and they'll be singing some hymn, and you'll say, I know this one, and you go, that's not the words. In fact, I know it in English, and in English, that's not what it says. Or I'll give you an example. The love of God. If you're translating that in Albanian, it's dashuria eperendis. So if it's in English, in the beat, you can't fit that in. So some churches just add notes on at the end of the line. So if it's in Christ alone, no. And you just stand there and you go, what on earth? So some kind of unified songbook, we're desperately in need of. Wrong way again. Bribery, corruption is throughout Albania. What annoys me, this is pictures of our government. We've got these flares and people fighting. Now, if that's what leadership's like within the government, it just drifts down into how the church thinks church leadership should be. None of the communist leaders under communism ever went to prison. None of them answered for their crimes. And it's created a mindset that I'm the church leader, I'm funded from abroad, and I can do what I want, and no one can touch me. And again, we're not going to go forward as a church if that's the case. I don't see anyone planning who's going to be the next leader, the next generation, training up the next generation in leadership. So we're going to be discussing this. I'll speak about it in the afternoon, but we're hoping to help some of the leaders. But It's just the mindset that I'm here, I'm on a good wage, I'm the church leader, I don't really care, I don't care what happens after me. Again, that's not going to help the church. Is the evangelical church growing in Albania? It's a very good question. The answer is yes, it is. But in reality, it's not. Why? Because there's so many Christians who are leaving. There's more Christians leaving than there are becoming Christians. So there are people becoming Christians. There is hope in Albania. There is good news. There's just too many leaving. We had this discussion at the leadership forum, and that's the conclusion. I asked those on the leadership forum, what are some of the positives about the evangelical church? And these were the answers I got back. High number of young people that are Christians. Commitment of church leaders to evangelism, and there are some churches very, very committed. Discipleship of the youth, and one guy from Kosovo, he says, there is growth, it's very small, but there is growth. I recently saw that there was a big conference with 200 people on church planting in Albania. They say within the next 10 years, they hope to have 50 churches with 50 or more people, and 200 church leaders have gone to this. So I'm saying that's great. Will it actually happen? I've no idea. I'm not that hopeful. These are statistics that I don't see with the amount of people leaving, how they're going to get these 50 people. But I was encouraged at least that there's 200 people going to a conference saying, I want to be part of this plan to listen in and to help. If you ask any church that's involved in youth work, you'll get a very positive report of Albania. There's a lot of good work in the youth. One of the guys in our leadership forum is in a small village down in the south of Albania. And I met him a number of years ago and I said, how's your church? Because small village, all the young people go to university or they leave to go to work. And I said, how are you getting on? He says, I've got a great youth group. I said, oh, yeah. He says, I've got some photographs here. And show me the photographs. Huge youth group, about 100 people. I went, wow. So a few years later, I met him and I said, how are you getting on? And he says, getting on great. We've built a building for the youth work. And I said, you got any photographs? He goes, yeah, here you go. Huge youth group again. I said, why? How? Don't understand. How are the youth staying? He says, we've got 2 big sports factories. I won't tell you their name. They're worldwide names. 2 big sports factories in our village, and everyone works at the sports factory. So if there's work, there's hope, but there's not much work elsewhere. Am I hopeful? Yeah, I'm hopeful. You know why I'm hopeful? Because Jesus said, I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. There is hope in Albania. There is difficulties, there's big difficulties. The Albanians need to get themselves together and work together as a team for the gospel. But God is working in Albania. And he will build his church. This afternoon, I will consider all these negatives and then tell you things that actually work within Albania that is working for the gospel. Every culture must find what will work within the culture. And that's what I'll focus on this afternoon. So I just want to stop there. But I want to say there is hope. There is a lot of good going on with the youth work. There's a lot of difficulties, and the difficulty number one is the mindset of people who think that because I'm born a Muslim, that's my identity for all my life. You've got to break that mindset and to show them that we're not calling on you to change your identity on your passport or what I was born into. We're calling you to follow the living Savior with your life. So I'll speak this afternoon, hopefully be a bit more positive, but I've tried to do a realistic overview of the evangelical church within Albania.